You're listening to an encore presentation of this program, KCAA, the Inland Talk Express.
Nation, if the ink had not dried on Revelation, would be in the books of Revelation. There's no people that have endured what we have endured anywhere in any scripture that can match what we've gone through. So the reality is we've come through, and we're coming through the other side as a prophetic destiny, as a divine destiny, not just for us, but for all humanity. All humanity should be excited that somebody who the society cast aside and said was 3/5 human being and was not fit to sit at the table is now not only sitting at the table, but is orchestrating the menu. Right? You know, somebody said before, they said either if you're not at the table, you might be on the menu.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I like that. Yeah, you might be on the menu. I like that.
Most definitely. Yeah. Most definitely.
Hello and welcome to the special edition of Justice Watch Radio with attorney Zulu Ali. We are here to talk about, you celebrate Black History Month, Black culture, Black identity, and in that regard also have and hold very important conversations with regards to the narrative that we're fed about Black America in this country. Mr. Ali, you're a Black successful man, someone who's really come up and really taught us, how to be successful, how to build a business, how to be a man of integrity, a man who has a family, thriving family. We're here, February, celebrating Black History Month. What is your take on that, this month that we have to celebrate Black history and Black identity?
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, it's always, nice to have this opportunity to at least focus on the accomplishments of African Americans in this country specifically. And, one of the things, of course, it's we always talk about it's the shortest month of the year.
Yeah.
And, it's just this 1 year to kind of focus on Black History Month and the accomplishments of African Americans in this country and our struggles. There's a lot of people who, and very prominent people, both Black and African American, or both African American and white, who often criticize the fact that there's a month for African Americans. And feel like that basically, I'm just an American. Let's just, focus on the fact that we're that we're all American. Which, I respectfully, completely disagree with that ideology. That we should not take this opportunity to focus on who we are as Black people in this country. And I think it's something that the entire country should take an opportunity and focus on. I think a lot of times, there has always been this concerted effort to, minimize and kind of wash away, a couple of things, our accomplishments and also the things that were done to us as Black people in this country. I know that there was a big debate about teaching African American studies and history and the critical race theory in schools, and I think the pushback is obviously an opportunity to not show the real truth about what has happened in this particular country.
True.
And so it's just really important for us to really take this opportunity to discuss our history and our culture and our contributions and where we are now.
Yeah.
And just to circle, back to, I'm reminded, and being Black in America is something that I am proudly reminded of, every day. And I think about, the history and have an opportunity to think about, where we come from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As I do that every day as I take my walk to the mailbox. I just think about, my family and my history and where we came from and that we are now in this privileged position because of the struggles and sacrifices of those who came before us. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, as a Black American in this country who's extremely successful in his field, and someone who's really worked his way up, what is your take on, just in general, I feel like often we're fed this narrative, right, about Black Americans in this country.
Right.
And that kind of further exacerbates the oppression, the marginalization of African Americans in this country. What is your take on that and the narrative that we're fed in this country?
I mean, I'm very bothered by the narrative of African Americans in this country. There's a book that was written, and it's not the book itself, the reading of the book itself, but the title. There's actually this person that has a show called The Breakfast Club. You ever see that?
Yes.
And it has one of the hosts is a person that he uses the moniker Charlemagne the God. He actually wrote a book called Black Privilege. And and I love that title. And the reason why I love the title is because I think that it really puts being Black in America in perspective. Because the whole idea that African Americans are necessarily victims, so to speak, because obviously we have been, victimized in certain. We think about the slave trade and the aftermath and that sort of thing. But I think the reality of it is that basically we have the and one of the things that reminds me, I don't know if you remember, years ago we did this show with Imam Terry Talib Major, and we were having this discussion, and I remember him making the statement that if the ink on God's word was not dry, what Black Americans had been through would be prophetic. And that is so true. The reality of it is nobody has the kind of history to tell like our history. We're the only ones that can tell that story. Everybody else's story is just a story of just existing, right? I mean, there's no story to really tell, because the reality of it is we talk about the history of this country. The reality of it is most people in this country really have no history there. They can talk about arriving on Ellis Island, and it begins there, and it ends to wherever they are. There's no real story there. So what you do makes your history. A man's worth is based upon what I always call distance traveled. Right? How did you get where you got? Right? They have no story like that. Right? So how can anybody else, especially in this country, and there's a few people who, obviously the indigenous people, but for the most part, there's nobody that can tell a story like that. And for some people, and see, the thing is that they really have created a narrative where people believe that what African Americans have been through makes us victims are on the lower end of the totem pole.
Okay.
But the reality of it is, I can tell the history. There's two people that exist in this country that the history of this country cannot be told without. It's just like when you hear like when they say the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
They say the way you determine whether a person should be in the Hall of Fame was whether you could tell the history of the NFL or the NBA. Are you with or without this person? You cannot tell the history of America without the indigenous people and the African Americans.
Of course. Yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
And so that shows you your worth. Good, bad, or otherwise, first of all, there's no aspect of this country that we have not been involved in.
True.
The economy of the country would never existed without us. Nobody else can say that. The wars, we fought literally in every war, right? Even when we were slaves,
Yeah.
we were fighting in wars, right?
Yeah.
The civil rights movement during that period of time shaped America. The civil rights movement actually shaped America. America would not be a great country without the civil rights movement,
True.
right? The Civil Rights Acts did not come from nobody else.
Exactly.
It came from us.
Yeah.
And I think that knowing you have that history, to be quite honest with you, at least from my perspective, I have to check myself. And the reason why I have to check myself is because, I might stick my chest out a little bit too far. You know what I mean? There's not a day that I wake up that I would prefer to be anybody else than who I am and have the history and be proud of the history that we have as African Americans. And for me, I think that when we hear this rhetoric and this narrative about the victimization and the things that people do to go out of their way, and I've said it a million times, it teaches you a story. It teaches you something. See, this is the thing. There's in any situation, you are almost never going to see African Americans going out of their way to oppress somebody else. If you saw a black police officer beat up a bunch of white folks, black America is going to be bothered by that. The majority of black America. They're going to be bothered by that. We're not going to say, well, police officers do. We wouldn't even do that. Right? I mean, honestly. Because we'd say, man, that's messed up. The reason why we would not do that is because of who we are as a people. Right? There is no agenda.
Yeah.
But the reason why they don't do it is because whether overt, covert, unintentionally, conscious or subconsciously, they feel it's necessary because there is a degree of fear that really understands that there was a lot of bad things that happened that puts you in the position that you're in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there was always this story about how you do dirt. I remember watching The Godfather, and he was talking about, how he wanted to go legitimate. And he can't go legitimate because, his bad deeds will come to haunt him one day. You know what I mean? So when you do dirt to get to the top, it's just like when you read some of the Pharaoh.
Yeah.
And he goes out and he wants to kill the offsprings of all these people.
Yeah.
Because he realized the more dirt you do, the more dirt you have to do. And that's the reason why they're cool with it. Right?
Yeah.
They don't want to clean up because you benefit from it.
Yeah.
There's no question that it's wrong. There's nobody that's going to say, so why would someone be silent about something that's wrong? It says everything about who you are.
Of course.
You know what I mean? I can tell you, if I saw a black police officer or a black person in any position doing something really negative to a white person, we'd have that conversation. The conversation you're going to have is that I'm going to go out of my way to make sure that I'm going to condemn it. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's who we are as people.
Of course.
They're not going to say anything. I would tell my grandson, you don't do that to people. What they're doing to those people, that's wrong. I would tell that to my children. I always told my children that. Do they teach that to their children? Do they teach that to their grandchildren? Most of them don't. Right? But what it does is it basically, it basically confirms the notion that there is a motive. Now, of course, there's there's great people that come from everywhere. Not all white people are co-signing the whole idea. which is a completely different story.
Yeah.
But the reason why I'm saying that is because I think that it double downs on the fact that African Americans, uh, the greatness of us,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and I feel to that point, I feel like, when a story is told by somebody who hasn't been through it, right? By the oppressor per se, it gets lost in translation. And it happens with stories all across.
Right.
And in hearing you talk about Black history and everything that you see and feel that should be put out there for people to know more about, could you talk more about that? What is the narrative that we should be looking into with
Right.
regards to Black Americans
Yeah.
in this country?
I was watching on YouTube. There's actually I don't remember what show it is or what they have this thing where they have like these usually it's like six people and it's like a discussion on really issues whether the Palestinian Israeli conflict, issues regarding homosexuality, issues regarding color. I mean the darkness. So there's these I would say maybe 6 or 7 individuals, and they were discussing about darkness, how darker people are treated differently than lighter skinned people.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because the darker skinned people were making statements that, at least on this show, there was probably 2 or 3 people that were darker that were saying how they were necessarily treated or their idea of beauty or, when someone sees them. And ultimately, I disagree with the assessment that being darker is a disadvantage. I don't think it is a disadvantage at all.
I see.
Absolutely. I think it's a narrative that we've created,
Of
and
course.
people actually have, co-signed it. It's just like when we define beauty, we have to understand, even from a global perspective, when it comes to things that people like. People like, like Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
These are civilizations that were involved in vices. Vices and bad things are always going to be attractive to people. One of the biggest, 2 of the most popular or biggest industries in the world are the illegal drug trade and entertainment. The sex trade, right?
Yeah.
Everybody loves that. You see what I mean? And so when you begin to say something is attractive at your lower self, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I could sit here and say, well, someone who's fully disclosed, has no clothes on looks better than somebody with clothes on. But does that make that individual better than someone else? So the whole idea is it depends on what your moral standard is.
Of course.
If your moral standard is, because that's how they sell beauty.
Of course.
They sell beauty by sex, right?
Yeah.
And basically, when you start thinking about this whole idea of beauty, then I don't know. I look at it from a religious perspective.
Of course.
And the reality of it is that basically, if you're going through, and this goes all over the world, if that whatever your standard is, if your standard is looking at someone and thinking, because like skin lightening is a huge thing all over the world too,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Why is it a huge thing all over the world? It's because they're selling something that isn't positive. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
And I think that goes along with the whole idea that darker skin individuals are less attractive or treated differently. And, as I've said before, it depends on who your marketing team is.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
If your marketing team is good, then and globally, that changes the perspective.
Yes.
It's all,
Definitely.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it really makes, actually makes no sense. And we also have to come back to the realization that Africa is the cradle of civilization. Mankind started on the continent of Africa. When you look at all the biblical characters, they were not white people. We started to create, even when they describe Jesus, Jesus was not a white dude, right? They created that narrative, and there was a reason why they created that narrative. Because it was necessary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and again, it depends on who your marketing team is.
Of
And
course.
if you're foolish enough to relate your faith and your belief in you're supposedly believing in God to, you know, this colorism that people are doing, then basically I feel sorry for you. I mean, black people in this country, you know, need to pray for ignorance. I feel sorry for those people. I really do. I honestly feel sorry for all those people who spend their time trying to oppress somebody because of their own fear. And I
Yeah.
think that black people need to probably understand that a little bit more.
Of course.
And I think that we need to understand the greatness of who we are, even on a global scale.
Yeah.
And I know we spend a lot of time talking about how black people need to embrace things that are exclusively black, whether it's talking about religion, politics, economics, all these things, because we're saying, hey, this belongs to these people,
Yeah.
that belongs to this people. This, you know, the reality of it is that they get it ultimately, you know, from us. The reality of it is it's the flip side. I don't think that there's any person, especially a black American, that should feel like they're inferior to anybody else.
Yeah.
It absolutely makes no sense.
Yeah.
You know, we have obviously, and I say this as humbly as I possibly can, we have the most significant history in this country. I mean, we really do. And I think that as we, you know, hopefully we turn this corner when it comes to trying to, or at least when it comes to how we see ourselves. You
Yeah.
know? And I think that narrative, you know, we could spend an entire show
Yes.
on why they did this narrative,
Of
why
course.
they created the narrative.
Systematic. Yeah.
But, you know, I feel like that hopefully, you know, that we can truly understand our importance on not only in this country but on a global scale. I think that once we understand how important we are, then I think that we'll turn that corner. Because I can tell you 110% that we're definitely not victims.
Yes.
We're definitely the victor. And there's absolutely no question about that.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I'm in those rooms where people feel like they're being treated differently, I don't feel like they're treating me differently because of me. I feel like they're treating me differently because of themselves.
Of course.
It has nothing to do with
Yeah.
me.
It's projection.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and I get in, and that's where I perform the best.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, whether it's in a courtroom or whether it's in a boardroom or whether it's in a bank, no matter where it's at, I think for me, I see it for what it really is. And the reality of it is that, you know, the truth is the truth. You know what I mean? I mean, you can tell somebody a lie, you know, and we've had, you know, personal conversations where I told you, I mean, there's a lot of people who are only beautiful because they got a good marketing team, right? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't look well, right? We know they don't look good.
Of course.
But if they have a good marketing team globally, the whole world thinks that they're, you know, if you put enough money into your marketing team, you can take somebody that looks really bad and make them look really good. You know what I mean?
That's so true.
And that's what's happening in society. That's what's going on globally is consumerism. That's not necessarily the truth.
Nubian Pictures presents a CCM Films production documentary entitled Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. This emotional and strong documentary tells the story of African-American lawyer Zulu Ali seeking justice and his purpose as a lawyer, while crossing paths with Araceli, an undocumented immigrant from Mexico who is seeking her freedom. Together, they help discover their purpose and freedom in each other. Watch this incredible film today from iTunes Movies, YouTube Movies, Amazon Prime, and Google Play Movies. Learn about the cast and crew, links to purchase, and more at purposeandfreedommovie.com. Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. Available now. Rated G. Are you an immigrant seeking defense representation and are looking to protect your rights? Or maybe someone who is experiencing an injustice or discrimination and need a lawyer you can trust? Well, that's exactly why you need the help of award-winning trial lawyer Zulu Ali. The law offices of Zulu Ali provides immigration defense representation for those seeking justice and looking to protect their rights. If you or a loved one needs professional legal advice and representation, then contact Zulu Ali. Zulu Ali's firm focuses on criminal law, family law, civil and personal injury, and international law. Zulu Ali is a former police officer and U.S. Marine, so you know you're in good hands, serving all of California and immigration cases nationwide, representing victims and suspects at the International Criminal Court at The Hague. Call Zulu Ali today at 888-682-3049 or visit ZuluAliLaw.com.
Yeah, and when we talk about, the image that we have of African Americans in this country, it's and comparing it to that marketing team, it's like, the system itself has been so good at marketing this narrative of African Americans that we've internalized that.
Absolutely.
And what would you say to those who have internalized that racism, who have internalized that victim complex? What is the narrative that they need to be, seeing? That what is it to be Black and beautiful? What is it to be a Black powerful man in America?
Yeah. I mean, it's great. I mean, and I think that we have to take, once a person understands, truly reads the history from the appropriate narrative and understanding, what we've been through.
Yes.
Right. And that meaning that you got to see where you came from.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I mean, if you understand where you came from and really where you are now, you got to understand that only you could do that.
Yeah.
Nobody else could have done it. Yeah. Nobody else has ever done it. And only you can do it. It's part of your DNA, obviously. And that's what we've done in this country. And if you understand that, the reason why that there is this whole narrative that these people have of their own hatred and their own fear, more appropriately, is because they're fearing who you could become. They have to do it.
Yeah.
Whether it's conscious or subconscious, nobody goes out of their way to try to oppress someone when you are at the top of the food chain. Right?
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So in other words, so that's the thing. I mean, you're not going to go out of your way to try to do something to keep somebody from being successful unless you know that, there's a fear that they may be, above you, or they may take, and that's the fear of this country. I mean, I'm going to say this with all, and this is not a lie. This is completely the truth. Ultimately, people are fearful of all the things that are going on right now. They're talking about is this culture war.
Yes.
Things are going to change. And you have to ask yourself, why would we be fearful? Because we've done it all.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That we've been through everything. Right? I mean, you got to look at something. You have to look at where I am in life, and sometimes I'll have to pinch myself. I was born and raised in Tennessee. I was born and raised in the places where plantations existed. And I rode through roads and places where I knew that plantations existed, that my family were slaves.
Wow.
I'm riding through roads where my family were not humans, they were farm animals. To go to become sharecroppers, where they were taken advantage of. My grandmother grew up as a sharecropper. Basically, it's another version of slavery. So they were sharecroppers. Then my grandfather had no education. He was a janitor. And he worked at an Air Force base, and he cleaned law offices and churches and banks. And sometimes I would go along with him.
Wow.
Now I'm an attorney, and I own my own law office. Right?
Yeah.
Checkmate. Right?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? No, who can give that narrative? You can come to me and you can tell me how successful when I came to this country. Like they've been given welfare ever since they got off of Ellis Island. Right?
Yeah.
Ever since they got off of Ellis Island, when someone treats you better than somebody else and you're in a privileged position, you're just a welfare recipient. It's just on a different scale. We were not welfare recipients. We worked for ourselves and we worked for you.
Wow.
And in light of the fact that we worked for you, then look at where I got. Now, for you to tell me that you're why would I admire someone who in their minds think I worked for it, and man, you didn't.
Yeah.
I know that my plight and my story is better than your plight and your story. Tell your story. Write a story. Write about it. Make a movie about your history and your folks. It's a boring movie. Nobody is buying tickets to see someone who came here and they were giving privileges. I left my country so I can get a privilege. Right?
Yeah.
And now look at me. I've done really nothing, right? But I can tell a story where at the worst of worst, we were sometimes treated worse than animals, right?
Yeah.
A dog could run away and not get shot, but a black person could run away and get shot, or mutilated in some way. So you come from that. I've come from someone who was in a slave shack, who was raped, abused, family split up, the worst crime against humanity. We went through that. And now look at where we are. And how in the world could that not be special?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so if you think about that history, it's not necessarily a history of sadness. It's a history of being triumphant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's our history. And I think that when we look at it, we have to understand they're embarrassed because they didn't go through that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like being in a war and hiding out in a shed. And after the war is over, you say, "Yeah, we won."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was hiding the whole time. I didn't really help win the war. I didn't pull the trigger. I didn't have a gun. I did everything to run away from the war. But now I want to take credit because we won the war. Right? So while you were hiding and not doing anything, we were out in the fields fighting the war. So when I come back and I get my medal, in my mind, I know I deserve that medal. When you got your medal, you know that basically you didn't deserve it. But you're going to do it, but you don't have the integrity to say that I don't deserve the medal the way you did because I didn't do what you did. You see what I mean? You have to live with that.
Yeah.
You have to live and die with the fact that ultimately in the final analysis, there's consequences for that. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know that for me, my conscience is clean.
Yeah.
So in other words, basically we hate to be reminded of our lesser self.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And our history reminds you of your lesser self. You see what I mean? And that's the reason why they don't want they don't want that all year long.
Yeah.
That's why they don't want critical race theory. That's why they don't want it being taught in schools.
Yeah.
Because it changes the narrative and the mindsets of everybody else. Why would my history change the way that children act or be negative on children when it's the truth?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want you to see the truth.
Of course.
Because you got to figure the majority of the time in this country, they were enslaving people.
Yeah.
We were in slavery a much longer time than we were out of slavery.
Yeah.
So how can it not be a narrative that you're going to spend a whole semester on, you know, the war,
Yeah.
right? But you're not going to spend it or about George Washington or Abraham Lincoln or whoever the president was without talking about the fact of what they did on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So, I know I expanded a lot on that, but I mean, I think that it just has to be understood from that narrative and that perspective, because the whole country doesn't get that.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
And even, I mean, just thinking about your trajectory and we're talking about slavery up until today, and we talk about today, modern America. We still have slavery when it comes to the prison industrial complex system. They're still doing a great job at selling that narrative.
Right.
And in thinking about your story, what does it take to go from that victim to that victor mentality?
Yeah.
What bridges that gap?
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's just coming to just being able to accept the truth. I mean, I think that's the whole thing, is like when internalized racism is a real psychosis.
Yes.
And I think that it's easy for someone to, as also as we were talking about, I mean, we've had times where we talked about domestic violence victims, which I think is very much similar to the way that, like you could be, as I said, you could be an abuser and tell someone that you're ugly, stupid, and you'll never be anybody. You know what I mean? So you have a choice. Either you can believe the lie or you can believe the truth, right? The only thing that will make you a victim is believing a lie, because it's just absolutely not true.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not true.
Yeah.
So the reality of it is once you get up and understand the plight and understand the significance of the plight, then you're definitely going to change the way you move and understand even sometimes when you get to positions of so-called success and so-called, power, you can still believe all those things.
True.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's going to impact you negatively.
Yeah, imposter syndrome is real, yeah.
Yeah, it's a difference between being put in a position, but being in a position of power. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's different. I mean, so yeah, there's a lot of people who are, and it goes, and I'm going to keep it real. I mean, it can happen for Black people too.
Yeah.
How did you get there?
Yeah.
If you got there believing that narrative and you stay with that narrative, then you're still a slave. You know what I mean? Your mind is still on a plantation. But when your mind, it's a hell of a thing to free your mind and realize your greatness. You know what I mean? And understand, and this is not a religious show, but understand the significance of God, who basically, because we are God's chosen people. We really are. If you look at what we went through, we're really God's chosen people, because we were not supposed to come out of that situation alive. We were not. And to where we are. I mean, when I say that we're farm animals, I'm not saying that because they thought we were farm animals. I'm saying that because that's what the law says.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's actually literally U.S. Supreme Court cases, in the Dred Scott decision.
Yes.
Who says that Black people were farm animals.
Yeah.
And they had no jurisdiction to bring the lawsuit because only human beings could bring the lawsuit. Right? So that was basically, that was the interpretation of the law. You were not human beings. And so to think that you were able to, come from that is just remarkable. It's a remarkable story that nobody has put into the proper, you know, narrative in a proper context. You know, and that's the movement. The movement is, why am I trying to convince someone lesser than me that I'm a human being?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you know, that makes no I mean, you know, to me, it's like I don't have no time for that.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm gonna tell you something that, and it just came to my mind a couple of years ago. I was in a trial, and in this trial, um, something really unusual happened. The judge was black, really good guy, very fair man. The jury was majority black. Um, me and my daughter was the defense attorneys,
Wow.
and the prosecutor was white. And she absolutely could not handle that. She got a little taste. I mean, it was unbelievable,
Yeah.
right? Because she had been a prosecutor for so long. She had never been in a situation where she did not have the advantage. And it played itself out in front of everybody.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And it's just like that little, it's like, man, I do this every day.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in a disadvantage every day. And look how, you know what I mean? But it's like you have done this so long that you could, so in other words, you couldn't do what I do. You know what I mean? So I do get a lot of gratification out of the fact of knowing every day that my plight is special. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that as black folks, we have to begin to start understanding the significance of it. You know, I mean, I could give you a speech about all the negative things that they've done and that all the negative things that they still do. But in the final analysis, I have to realize that, you know, we've done great things and we have to focus on where we've come.
Yeah. And I really think that throughout this segment, you've done a great, amazing job just conveying that, you know, that the plight of African Americans in this country is special, that the plight of African Americans in this country is something that should be celebrated, that blackness is beautiful, you know, that African Americans have deeply built this country from the bottom up, and that we need to be celebrating that. And what more than to be celebrating that this February, Black History Month. Mr. Ali, once again, thank you so much for the platform that you allow us to be able to have these very deep, meaningful conversations about just the meaning, you know, of African Americans in this country. And you yourself this February and this entire year and forever need to be celebrated, because you are a man, like we've mentioned on this radio and this platform, that has really allowed for all of us to be able to convey these messages so successfully about just that Black is beautiful and that Black is successful and that Black can and that Black will in this country. Be sure to tune in to Justice Watch Radio every Sunday. Be sure to also follow us on Facebook, and be sure to continue tuning in to be hearing more about what successful top 10 criminal attorney Zulu Ali has to say and communicate. Thank you so much for watching.
And thank you for your kind words, but you know,
it's not kind words, Mr. Ali. Hey, it's the true narrative. It's the truth.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. And happy birthday. We are here celebrating Mr. Ali as well. He just had a birthday. So to all of you who are watching, be sure to comment.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so once I became an attorney and opened up my own law office, then my whole idea, my whole mission at that point was to do to make this difference, to make the change in the world. I understood this was my purpose. I understood that I was supposed to change the world. How I was going to do it, I wasn't quite sure, because as we know, there's so many different things that you can do to actually change the world.
I did not feel safe. That's why I decided to come here to California, because I didn't feel safe in Mexico.
It's kind of like the system, and if you go outside the system, then it becomes a struggle.
He's tenacious in his pursuit of justice for people, and that is refreshing in this day and time.
I crossed the border back in 1999. I was kidnapped by Americans. They held me in their house with my daughter for 2 weeks, locked in the room.
The whole idea of being someone within the system that's trying to make a difference and make a change, there's a lot of resistance to that by the so-called system itself.
I feel that when it comes to picking a career, following your passion, the underlying paradigm of it always has to be, what did I do to help others along the way?
Even though I went to the police station, I still thought I would be going home eventually. If my children's father did something wrong, why do I have to pay his consequences?
So now you've gone to being mistreated by, officials from your country of origin to coming to a country where you're trying to seek your freedom, and then you're also mistreated here by these officials.
Purpose is to help others. He always loved to help people.
Told me that he was moving to California. Of course, it upset me because I was close to him and his kids, but I knew he was going to do something with his life.
I did expect better treatment from the U.S. court system. She tried by every means to make everyone feel like they were worthless. She would make you feel like you're nobody and made it clear she could do what she wanted with your case.
He cares a lot about people, and for him, he truly believes he was put in this world for a purpose.
We began to start preparing for what would be an asylum hearing on her behalf.
I don't think I would have been better in Mexico. I don't. But if you can compare it, it's really almost the same situation. I only go in circles, to the same violence I tried to leave. It was very hard because I saw many things. People abusing other people, violating people's rights.
Well, here you have this system, and you have these heartless individuals that are involved in the system that instead of, fighting for justice and trying to change the law, you find yourself sometimes fighting the system itself.
He wants to build a legacy, and he still thinks he's building the legacy, which I think he is, but I think at some point he has to realize that he's done a lot, and he's built that legacy already.
When I got out of immigration jail, I felt happy because I knew I was going to be able to hug my children. I was so happy when that moment became a reality.
I'm not really moved by how far I can take my career, nor am I really moved by the material or financial success of my career. The only thing that I'm moved by is my conscience and ultimately bringing about the glory to those individuals that are in need of it.
People have setbacks. Some people, once they have a setback, they just give up.
Being back in the free world, I can appreciate it. You realize freedom is a reality which God allows us to have.
The most important thing is really the journey itself. And I think a lot of people don't value, the process of getting to where you want to go. And sometimes along the way, I think that too often people don't appreciate both the failures and successes when they're on this journey.
Purpose means for me to fight for something I want, for my well-being, for my children, for my family. For me, the purpose of recovering my children is something I can't help.
These people that we entrust our lives, our liberty, and our safety to aren't protecting us.
I'm thankful because he's a great person, a very important person in my life. And I know he always cared for me, all the time. He had every intention to help me with everything I needed. Everything.
Everybody in the family is proud of Zulu. He's accomplished everything he wanted to, and more.
There's two types of people. There are people who give, and there are people who take. I mean, some people, they come through the world and basically all they do is take. The world could exist with you, or the world could exist without you. And then there's some people that come along and basically they figure out ways to help other people. They give.
Yeah, come on. Hey, no more sitting on the sideline. We gotta wake them up, and I think it's about time. Till they saying it's the truth I see. With number one attorney Zulu Ali. Hey, keep it real, and it's just like that. Everybody goes after the champ. Going hard, and I don't hold back. That's why everybody goes after the champ. Hey, so let them talk, and let them hate. We gonna rise, gonna elevate. So let them talk, and let them hate. We gonna rise, gonna elevate. Elevating mentally, and I got the stamina, ready for whatever problems, I can handle them. Yeah, I got the power to drive, and I ain't scared of them. Everyone goes after the champ, never the challenger. Yeah, dealing with the conflicts, envy, and the racism. This is my life, my beast. Now you ain't getting. I got Zulu Ali fighting, so I'm all good. Support your people on the real, yeah, you all should. I know the devil be hiding, waiting for me to slip, but I'll forever deny him. Whatever happens, I ain't worried. I'm in SoCal, rocking with a legendary attorney. Let's go. Keep it real, and it's just like that. Everybody goes after the champ. Going hard, and I don't hold back. That's why everybody goes after the champ. Hey, so let them talk, and let them hate. We gonna rise, gonna elevate. So let them talk, and let them hate. We gonna rise, gonna elevate. Black excellence, this is motivation. I know they talk, and I know they hate it. Gotta break it down, someone never get it. Dealing with racism is deeply systemic. We breaking down the walls, I love my melanin. It deserves a round of applause, I keep telling them. No more speaking my thoughts, I start yelling them. They say the kids are the future and we failing them. So we gon' fight back, that's what we need. Ain't no taking no L's when you got Zulu Ali. So we gon' fight back, that's what we need. Ain't no taking no L's when you got Zulu Ali. Keep it real, and it's just like that. Everybody goes after the champ. Going hard, and I don't hold back. That's why everybody goes after the champ. Hey, so let them talk, and let them hate. We gonna rise, gonna elevate. So let them talk, and let them hate. We gonna rise, gonna elevate. Keep it real, and it's just like that. Everybody goes after the champ. Going hard, and I don't hold back. That's why everybody goes after the champ. Hey, so let them talk, and let them hate. We gonna rise, gonna elevate. So let them talk, and let them hate. We gonna rise, gonna elevate.
Miss something today, yesterday, last week? Check out our podcasts at www.kcaaradio.com. We leave no listener behind.
What is your plan for your beneficiaries to manage your final expenses when you pass away? Life insurance, annuities, bank accounts, investment accounts, all require a death certificate, which takes 10 days based on the national average, which means no money is immediately available. This causes stress and arguments. Simple solution, the beneficiary liquidity plan. Use money you already have. No need to come up with additional funds. The funds grow tax deferred and pass tax free to your named beneficiaries. The death benefit is paid out in 24 to 48 hours without a death certificate. You heard me right. Without a death certificate. Call us at 1-800-306-5086.
Was your car involved in an accident or just need help with dents? All Magic Paint and Body Collision Centers. In business for over 30 years. Their highly trained staff and certified technicians and friendly staff are the best in the business and treat each car as if it was their own. All Magic Paint and Body Collision Centers are family owned and offer state-of-the-art equipment and tools to ensure optimum results. They use the latest technology in computerized color matching and specialize in frame repairs. With their modern laser measuring systems, they're OEM certified, and they have 4 locations to serve you. All Magic Paint and Body Collision Centers offer rental car assistance with free drop-off and pickup services too, and their work has a lifetime guarantee.